The Galactic Council, the most powerful force in the universe, had issued a final warning: stay away from Earth's children. The command was clear, and every alien species in the galaxy was expected to obey. But not everyone listened. A ruthless alien faction, known as the V-Rax, believed they could conquer any world, no matter the warning. They thought Earth's children were weak and defenseless. They were wrong. The V-Rax fleet silently entered Earth's orbit under the cover of night. Their mission was simple: capture Earth's children, study them, and use their power for their own gain. They didn't know that Earth's children weren't as ordinary as they appeared. It all started with a young girl named Ava. She was playing in her backyard when the sky above her turned dark. She heard a strange noise, followed by the sound of something landing nearby. She didn't know it yet, but her life was about to change forever. Ava wasn't alone. Across the world, millions of children felt the change. It was as if a storm had rolled through their minds, awakening something hidden deep inside them. They couldn't explain it, but they could feel it. They were different, and they weren't afraid. The V-Rax had no idea what they were walking into. They landed in the heart of a forest near a small village, where Ava and several other children were gathered. Their first mistake was underestimating the strength of human unity. The moment the V-Rax made their presence known, something unexpected happened. The children reacted not with fear, but with defiance. Ava was the first to show signs of power. She lifted her hand, and the ground beneath the V-Rax began to tremble. At first, they thought it was just a fluke, but then they saw the other children, each of them unlocking their own unique abilities. Some could control the weather, others had enhanced strength, and a few even seemed to communicate telepathically. The V-Rax were used to controlling their enemies, not the other way around. They tried to fight back, but the children were unlike anything they had ever encountered. Ava, feeling the energy surging within her, was the leader of the group. She guided the others, and together they fought back against the aliens. The battle was fierce. The V-Rax fired their weapons, but the children blocked them with their newfound powers. Ava raised her hands, and the sky darkened, sending bolts of lightning crashing into the invaders. The aliens were stunned, unable to understand what was happening. How could these children be so powerful? As the fight raged on, the council watched from afar. They had warned the V-Rax, but now they had no choice but to intervene. They couldn't allow one of their most powerful races to fail. They couldn't risk Earth's children becoming more powerful than any species in the galaxy. The Council sent a fleet of their own ships to Earth, hoping to stop the V-Rax and restore order. But they were too late. The children were already learning how to control their powers, and they weren't going to let anyone harm them again. Ava led the charge, her eyes glowing with a fierce determination. She knew the Council's warnings, but they didn't scare her. She had a new purpose now: protect her world, protect her people. The V-Rax, now realizing the scale of their mistake, tried to flee, but Earth's children had become more than they ever imagined. The battle had shifted. It was no longer about alien invaders against helpless humans. It was about a race that had always been underestimated, rising up to defend their world. As the battle neared its peak, the Council's ships descended. They came in full force, their weapons ready. But Ava, with her powerful mind and heart, made a decision. She reached out to the Council, not with words, but with a force that no one had ever felt before. It was as if she had tapped into the very core of their being. She communicated to them, her voice echoing in their minds. You were wrong. Earth's children will not be your weapons. We will not be controlled. We will fight for our future. The Council, stunned by the strength of her will, hesitated. They had never encountered a species so powerful, so defiant. Ava's words were simple, yet they held the weight of an entire planet. The Council had no answer. The children had made their choice, and nothing would stop them now. In the final moments of the battle, the V-Rax, defeated and humiliated, retreated. But the war wasn't over. The Council still had plans for Earth, and they wouldn't give up so easily. They might have lost this battle, but they knew they could still control Earth's future. Or could they? The children weren't done. They had learned something important. They were no longer the helpless beings the Council thought they were. They were stronger than anyone realized, and their fight was just beginning. Ava stood tall, watching as the alien ships disappeared into the distance. She knew that the Council might return, but Earth's children were ready. They would fight for their home, for their families, and for their future. The Galactic Council had issued a command, but the children of Earth had made their own choice. And that choice would change the galaxy forever. It was a quiet night on Earth when everything changed. In an instant, the peaceful skies above were pierced by the flashing lights of alien ships. They came without warning, descending from the stars, their engines humming with a dark power. Their mission was clear: to capture Earth's children. For years, the Council of Galactic Leaders had known the truth. Earth's children weren't like any others. Deep within them lay the potential for a power so immense it could shift the balance of the entire galaxy. The aliens knew this, and they weren't about to let Earth's children grow any stronger. They had to be taken. But the Council underestimated one thing: Earth's children were not as defenseless as they believed. The first child to be taken was a boy named Liam. He was just 10 years old, playing with his friends in a small town when the ships arrived. He never saw it coming. In a blink, he was surrounded by a strange light and lifted off the ground, pulled into the ship above. His friends tried to scream, but their voices were drowned out by the roar of the ship's engines. They couldn't help him. Liam vanished, taken by forces beyond their understanding. Liam wasn't the only one. Across the world, children were snatched from their homes, their schools, their playgrounds. Boys and girls, all ages, all races, and all unaware of the powers they held inside. They were taken aboard the alien ships, each of them confused and terrified, not knowing what awaited them in the stars. But there was one thing the aliens didn't expect. The children weren't afraid. They didn't understand what was happening, but something inside them stirred. A quiet, powerful force began to awaken. It was as if the moment they were taken, they realized something deep within themselves had been unlocked. Liam was the first to experience it. Inside the alien ship, he was placed in a sterile, cold room. A strange device was attached to his head, and he felt a sharp pain as they began to probe his mind. The aliens were trying to extract whatever power they thought he held. But Liam resisted. He didn't know how, but he refused to let them control him. He pushed back against their attempts, and as he did, the strange power inside him grew stronger. A sudden surge of energy shot through his body, and the aliens were thrown back, their equipment short-circuiting. Liam stood there, breathing heavily, but with a newfound strength that filled him with both fear and wonder. He didn't know what he had done, but he knew one thing for sure: he wasn't going to let them take him or anyone else without a fight. The aliens, shocked by his resistance, quickly moved to subdue him. But it was too late. Liam wasn't alone. One by one, the other children began to awaken their powers. In a different part of the ship, a girl named Mia could control the temperature around her. Another child, Ethan, found he could move objects with his mind. And a group of them, united in their fear and desperation, began to communicate without words, connecting their thoughts and sharing their strength. The aliens were growing desperate. They thought they could control these children, but instead, they had unknowingly unleashed a force they couldn't contain. The children fought back, using their powers to break free from the alien prison they had been placed in. The leader of the alien faction, a cold and calculating being named Zorath, watched in disbelief as the children turned the tables. He had no idea how they had developed these powers, but he knew he couldn't let them escape. He ordered the ship's defenses to be activated, but the children were already ahead of him. They had learned how to manipulate the ship's systems, and they were ready to fight back. Zorath tried to regain control, but the more he fought, the stronger the children became. They were no longer frightened. They were a united force, determined to take back their freedom. The ship's walls shook as the children's powers intensified, and the aliens realized they were losing control of their own ship. Back on Earth, the parents of the missing children were frantic. News reports spread across the world, showing footage of the alien ships hovering above cities, taking their children. Governments scrambled to respond, but no one knew how to fight an enemy that had come from the stars. The children, however, had already started to fight back in ways no one could have predicted. Liam, now the leader of the children's resistance, guided them through the ship, knowing they had to escape before the aliens could regroup, as they made their way toward the ship's exit. But the children were ready. They fought with a fury that surprised even themselves, using their abilities in ways that felt both natural and powerful. The escape was a chaotic, tense race against time. Every step brought them closer to freedom, but also closer to danger. Zorath wasn't done yet. He sent his best soldiers after the children, determined to stop them before they could escape. Finally, with one last push of strength, Liam and the others broke through the ship's outer doors. They were back in space, free, and heading toward Earth. But their journey was far from over. The alien forces would never give up. The Council had only begun to realize the true power of Earth's children. And the children themselves? They had just begun to understand what they were capable of. As the children's ship soared through the stars, Liam looked out at the vast, empty space. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing: the aliens had underestimated them. And now, they were the key to saving Earth and possibly the entire galaxy. It started quietly, like a whisper in the night. The kind of warning no one took seriously. Earth's children, once seen as helpless and vulnerable, were becoming something else, something dangerous. But no one noticed, not at first. The Galactic Council, the ruling power of the universe, had always kept a close eye on Earth. They had warned all the alien species, stay away from Earth's children. They are a threat. But those words were ignored. No one believed it. Earth was just another planet, and its children were nothing more than a curiosity. A species to be studied, nothing more. But then, things began to change. First, it was small. A boy in the middle of a crowded street raised his hand, and the streetlights flickered. A girl sitting in her classroom whispered to a friend, and suddenly the classroom door slammed shut, trapping everyone inside. These were just small signs, hardly noticeable. But they were the beginning. The Council had been watching Earth closely for years, but now they couldn't ignore the strange occurrences. Children across the globe were exhibiting unusual powers, powers that no one could explain. Powers that the Council had feared for centuries. In a quiet town in the middle of nowhere, a group of children gathered in an old abandoned building. They had felt the change, the strange power that seemed to grow inside them. They didn't know where it came from, but it was real. And it scared them. Lily, a young girl with dark brown hair and a sharp mind, had felt the first spark. She didn't know how or why, but she knew something had changed. One night, as she lay in bed, she focused on a glass of water on her nightstand. With just a thought, the glass tipped over, spilling water across the floor. But it wasn't just the water, it was the force, the strange energy that had come with it. The more she focused, the stronger it became. At first, it was hard to control. But with each passing day, the power inside her grew. And she wasn't the only one. Other children around the world had started to feel it. In the days that followed, the world's greatest scientists were puzzled. Reports of strange energy surges, objects moving on their own, and mysterious lights in the sky flooded the media. Governments scrambled to understand what was happening. But no one could explain it. No one could control it. And no one knew where it was coming from. The Council knew the truth. Earth's children were not just growing up. They were awakening. Each of them held a power far beyond human understanding, powers that had lain dormant for centuries. And if they ever realized the full extent of their abilities, they could change the course of history. As Lily and the other children continued to practice, they realized that their abilities were not isolated. They could communicate with each other without speaking. They could feel each other's thoughts, understand each other's fears and desires, even from miles away. It was as if they were connected by some invisible thread. But this connection wasn't just about communication. It was about control. The more they practiced, the more they realized they could bend the world around them to their will. Walls could crumble. Water could boil. The air itself could be shaped. And as they grew stronger, they began to see things differently. What had once been fear and confusion now became power. They were no longer helpless children. They were something more, something unstoppable. The Council, in a panic, sent their most skilled agents to Earth, determined to find the source of the power and eliminate it. But they didn't understand. They didn't understand that the children were no longer just children. They were something greater. Lily and her friends had no intention of being controlled. They had learned too much. The Council's warnings had been ignored for far too long. They were done hiding, done being afraid. The first attack came without warning. A small group of alien agents landed in the heart of the city, ready to seize control. But they didn't count on the children's newfound abilities. As the agents moved through the streets, they were met with an unexpected force. The ground trembled beneath their feet. Buildings shook. Vehicles were lifted off the ground as if by invisible hands. The alien agents panicked, firing their weapons, but nothing seemed to stop the children. They fought back with a strength that no one had ever seen before. Lily, standing at the forefront, focused all her energy. The air around her rippled, and in an instant, the agents were thrown back, their weapons shattered. The chaos spread quickly. It wasn't just the children of Lily's city, it was everywhere. Across the world, children were awakening. The Council had underestimated them. And now, there was no turning back. In a desperate move, the Council decided to send in reinforcement ships, soldiers, and weapons designed to crush any threat. But the children were already prepared. They had tapped into the deepest corners of their powers, and they were ready for whatever the Council could throw at them. The final battle loomed, but no one knew how it would end. The children had no intention of losing. They had become a force of nature, and their power was only growing stronger. The Council could no longer control Earth's future. The world held its breath as the children, once thought to be powerless, unleashed chaos. But in the middle of it all, one question remained. Could the Council stop them before it was too late? Or had Earth's children already won? The world was on the brink of collapse. For years, Earth had faced war, climate disasters, and alien invasions. The last hope for humanity seemed distant, a fragile dream hidden deep in the secrets of the past. But no one knew that the key to saving humanity had always been right in front of them, hidden in the DNA of Earth's children. It all began with a series of strange experiments carried out by an unknown organization, one that had been operating in the shadows for decades. They had always known something the rest of the world didn't. The children of Earth carried a secret within them, a dormant power that could change everything. But only a few believed it. Dr. Elena Frost, a scientist known for her groundbreaking research on genetics, had always been suspicious of the hidden experiments. She had heard rumors of children showing unusual abilities, but they were dismissed as myths. That is, until one day, a mysterious man appeared at her door with a file that would change everything. "I think you need to see this," the man said, handing her the thick file. Inside were detailed records of children from all over the world, showing evidence of genetic changes that shouldn't be possible. The data pointed to one thing, a secret DNA sequence that had been hidden in humanity for centuries. This sequence was the key to unlocking the children's power, the power to save or destroy the entire planet. But Dr. Frost was skeptical. She needed more proof. The man, however, wasn't able to provide more. He vanished as quickly as he appeared, leaving her with only a cryptic message: find the children. Find the DNA. It's humanity's last hope. Dr. Frost knew she had to investigate further. She couldn't ignore the feeling that the fate of the world rested on the shoulders of Earth's children. So, she set out on a mission to find these children and uncover the truth behind their DNA. Little did she know that others were also searching for the same secret. The alien race known as the Exolith had been watching Earth for years, and they had discovered the truth about humanity's genetic potential long before Dr. Frost. They knew that if Earth's children ever unlocked their power, they would become a force that no alien species could defeat. So, the Exolith had made it their mission to ensure that the children never learned the truth, that the secret DNA remained hidden. But the children weren't waiting to be found. All over the world, they began to experience strange things. It started with a young boy named Max, who, while playing with his dog, suddenly caused the ground beneath him to crack. At first, he thought it was an accident, but when it happened again, he realized something was wrong. He wasn't sure what it was, but something inside him had changed. Max wasn't the only one. In a small town far away, A girl named Sophie felt an inexplicable surge of energy when she touched a tree. The tree seemed to respond, its leaves rustling as if alive. She didn't know what was happening, but she could feel it. She was different. As more and more children discovered their abilities, Dr. Frost's investigation took a dramatic turn. She was able to track down a group of children who seemed to be connected, each one with a unique power. The abilities ranged from telekinesis to controlling fire, manipulating the weather, and even healing others. But there was one thing they all had in common: the strange genetic marker in their DNA. As Dr. Frost dug deeper, she uncovered something terrifying. The Exalith had already started to target the children, sending their elite soldiers to capture and eliminate anyone who might stand in their way. They knew that the secret was out, and they were willing to do whatever it took to stop it from being unlocked. Dr. Frost realized that time was running out. She had to warn the children and help them understand their abilities before the Exalith could take them. But she wasn't alone in her quest. A shadowy figure from the past, a former ally of the Exalith, had emerged, offering her a way to fight back. His name was Adrian Cole, and he had once worked for the Exalith, studying Earth's children and their secret DNA. Adrian told Dr. Frost that the DNA sequence hidden in the children's genes wasn't just a source of power, it was a key. A key to a weapon that could destroy the Exalith and any other alien race that dared to invade Earth. The weapon was ancient, and only the children could unlock it. But the process was dangerous. If they didn't learn how to control the power within them, the weapon could turn against them and destroy everything. Adrian led Dr. Frost to a hidden facility deep underground, where the first experiments on Earth's children had been conducted. There, they found the original research, a record of the genetic experiments that had been done years ago. The truth was more horrifying than they had imagined. The children weren't just born with this DNA, they had been engineered, modified, and tested. They had been created for one purpose: to protect Earth from an alien invasion. But the experiments had been stopped, and the secret was buried. Now, the children were the last hope for humanity. Dr. Frost knew what had to be done. She had to gather the children, teach them how to harness their abilities, and prepare them for the final battle against the Exalith. As the Exalith forces closed in, Dr. Frost and Adrian gathered the children and led them into a hidden underground base, where they would begin their training. The clock was ticking, and the fate of the planet hung in the balance. The children were ready. They were humanity's last hope. But would they be able to unlock their full potential in time? Or would the Exalith destroy them before they could ever truly understand their power? The world had changed, and with it, the fate of humanity now rested in the hands of the children. For years, they had lived in the shadows, unaware of the power within them. But now, the truth was undeniable. The aliens, once confident in their superiority, had underestimated Earth's children. And now, the final battle was about to begin. Liam, the leader of the children's resistance, stood at the edge of a ruined city, staring out at the dark sky. The stars seemed so distant, yet closer than ever. He could feel it, the power growing within him, building, ready to be unleashed. But there was something more, a deep, unshakable fear. The final battle would not be easy, and they had no idea if they were strong enough to win. The Exalith, the alien race that had been trying to conquer Earth for decades, had finally made their move. Their fleets hovered above the planet, ready to wipe out the last remnants of humanity. They had come for one reason: the children. The children's powers were the only threat to their empire, and they would stop at nothing to eliminate them. Liam turned to his friends, the other children who had gathered to fight for Earth. Mia, with her ability to control the weather, stood beside him, her fists clenched, ready for the storm that was about to break. Ethan, who could move objects with his mind, paced nervously, his eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of the enemy. And then there was Lily, who had the power to control fire, her eyes glowing with intensity. They were ready. Or so they thought. The plan was simple: infiltrate the Exalith flagship, destroy their control center, and end their invasion once and for all. It sounded easy enough, but Liam knew better. They weren't just fighting aliens. They were fighting against everything they had ever known. They were fighting for their survival. The children had learned to harness their powers in the underground training facility that Dr. Frost had set up for them. They had trained for months, growing stronger with each passing day. But as they prepared for battle, Liam couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't ready. The power they wielded was immense, but with it came great responsibility. "Are we sure about this?" Liam asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Maya nodded, her expression serious. "We have no choice. The Exilith won't stop until we're all gone. This is the only way." Liam took a deep breath. He wasn't sure if he was ready to lead them into battle. But he knew one thing: they had to fight. For Earth. For their families. For their future. As the children boarded their ship, the atmosphere was tense. They could feel the weight of the mission on their shoulders. The journey through space was long and quiet. There was no turning back now. Hours later, they arrived at the Exilith flagship. The massive ship loomed in the distance, dark and foreboding. The children could see the flickering lights of the enemy ships surrounding it. The time had come. Liam turned to his team. "Stay focused. We'll need to move fast. We have one shot at this." Together, they stormed the flagship's entrance, their powers at the ready. Liam felt the energy coursing through him, but he also felt the pressure of the moment. This wasn't just about defeating the Exilith, it was about securing a future for Earth, and the future of their kind. The alien soldiers were waiting for them. The Exilith had expected resistance, but nothing could prepare them for the strength of the children. Mia called down a storm, lightning crackling through the air, striking down the first wave of soldiers. Ethan lifted debris and hurled it at the enemies with his mind, knocking them out one by one. Lily set the hall on fire, forcing the soldiers to retreat. But the Exilith were relentless. They had anticipated the children's powers and sent in their elite forces. A fierce battle broke out, the sounds of explosions and cries filling the air. The children fought bravely, but they were outnumbered. Liam knew they couldn't hold them off forever. They had to get to the control center, and fast. "Follow me," he shouted, leading the way. They pushed forward, navigating the dark corridors of the flagship. The alien soldiers were everywhere, but the children kept fighting, using their powers to create openings in the enemy's defenses. They were close, so close to the control center, but the hardest part was still ahead. When they finally reached the control room, they found what they were looking for: the central command terminal, where the Exilith controlled their entire invasion force. Liam knew that destroying it would stop the attack, but it wasn't going to be easy. A figure appeared from the shadows: Zorath, the Exilith commander. His cold eyes locked onto Liam. "You're too late, Earthling. Your kind is nothing but a fleeting moment in the galaxy. The Exilith will rule." Liam stepped forward, his hands crackling with energy. "Not today. This ends now." The battle between Liam and Zorath was intense, both using every ounce of power they had. Lightning clashed with fire, and the ground beneath them shook. Liam could feel himself weakening, but he didn't give up. The fate of Earth depended on him. With one final burst of energy, Liam unleashed a wave of force that threw Zorath across the room. The Exilith commander was defeated. Liam turned to the control terminal, his hands trembling. He knew what he had to do. With a deep breath, he reached out, channeling every bit of his power into the terminal. The system short-circuited, and the alien fleet above them began to fall apart, their ships crashing to the ground. The battle was over. Earth had won. But the children knew this was only the beginning. They had saved their planet, but now they had to rebuild, to ensure that the Exilith or any other force would never threaten them again. As they stood together, looking at the wreckage of the alien fleet, Liam smiled. "We did it," he said. And in that moment, the children realized the truth. They were not the future. They were the present. And the world would never be the same again.